Hello, everybody, and welcome to the end of week 5 of the LPL. My name is Munchables. I'm joined by Dagda. It's just the two of us today as we head into episode number 3 of The Last Hit. And man, it has been a whirlwind 5 weeks, let me tell you. Rob, I don't know about you, but it has gone damn quickly. I cannot believe we're halfway through the spring split already.
Yeah, especially because when we usually have the spring split, it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks before it actually gets into it. It feels nuts to have pretty much half of our split already done before we go into Chinese New Year. I kind of expected the little bit of a break to come in, and then I'm like, wait, we're still going. So, especially because it's 7 days a week as well, it just feels so quick now.
Yeah, it has been intense for us, especially having a broadcast every single day. For those 5 weeks, it has been intense. But one thing I will say, I think a positive thing about the fact that we first off get our Chinese New Year break literally halfway through, which is very neat. It's very nicely packaged, this split. But also, because of that, because we're at the end of week 5 as we go for a break, I feel like we have a really nice little section now this 2 weeks to take a step back and look at the league holistically and look at, okay, who's been performing well, who's been performing badly. And unlike other Chinese New Year breaks that are like week 2 or week 3, these standings right now matter. You can't just go, oh, that was before Chinese New Year. That doesn't matter like you've been able to in previous years. This year, we're halfway through the split. The standings right now could end up being very similar to what the standings look like at the end of the split. This is a very real flavor of what to expect. So that's a very new look for the LPL, and I'm excited for what's to come in that regard, because the standings are not exactly the way that you would have expected right now.
And it's nice from kind of being an analyst perspective, because I actually have a grip on these teams. I know what to expect. I know what their strengths are. I know what their weaknesses are. So even from that point, it's super exciting now coming back after Chinese New Year. It's hey, what have the teams been working on? Have they been screaming? Have they just been, taking it easy? How are we seeing some of these changes come through? But even as well as you said, actually going, hey, we have a decent idea as to who our top teams are and kind of what way we're going to be situated come to the end of the split is really, really nice. And I for someone as well, because it always gripes me, or is a gripe with myself, whenever I see the teams are people well, it's before Chinese New Year, this doesn't matter, and then everyone just seems to forget that we get to the end of spring and there's a game separating all these teams, or series. Oh yeah, but that series back before Chinese, that didn't matter. I'm yes, it does. It always ends up mattering.
This is hilarious, because this is a conversation I've had with many people in esports on how round robins work, because a lot of people, and there's a general feeling of it's only week 1, it's only week 2, well, it's only this opponent, and at the end of the day, these teams only play each other one time. So even if it was week 1, that doesn't matter when you get to the end of the round robin. You still only had that one chance. The points still count the whole time. Even though when you look at the standings on week 10, right, and there'll be a matchup that decides a head-to-head, or there'll be matches that very specifically decide seeding, and everyone's oh my god, this game is so important. Actually, logistically, that game has the exact same importance as the other 15 best of 3s that team played. It's just they've only just realized that the games are important by that point.
Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of see some people are looking okay, well, they're still getting to grips with each other. Say for teams like FPX, right? They've just brought over Nuggery, they're trying to figure each other out. I can get that argument where it's give them a little bit of time to get together, and then they'll look really good. But to say that the game doesn't matter is very, very different.
Yeah, it's definitely a different conversation. But how are you doing, mate? How is your experience of 2021 LPL been? Because I feel like the game has changed a little bit from last year, certainly in terms of pace. I feel like we've had a bit of a slower LPL than what we had in 2020 so far.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you look at a lot of the comments that we see now are just holy, this is supposed to be action, this is supposed to be fighting, and you're kind of oh, well, we kind of got a lot of teams now that are playing that slow-paced games. Well, we still have FPX, Top Esports, these super bloody teams. We've got like Sunnis and JDGs and these kind of guys that take it a lot slower. So I think it is very much a mixed bag. But even just the meta as well seems to have shifted towards a slower pace, where you got like later game scaling AD carries in the bot lane like Zayas and Jins and all that are kind of doing their thing. Even the Kai'Sas to a certain extent. You're looking at mid lane as well. A lot of control mages there with Syndras and Orianas, and it's much more about like, okay, we're just going to try and help in a little bit in the mid jungle 2v2, but it's more about like, hey, can we get these invades? Can we get this CS in our favor? So I think overall it's kind of led to slower paced games in a lot of senses. It's been kind of cool to see, but at the same time, I do miss the bloodiness of last year. Like last year coming in, it was like, holy god, this is nuts. Especially for a new guy coming in, you're kind of like, how do I deal with just this much action? Because coming across from like EU Masters, where it's pretty slow paced, and EU in general is a much slower paced region, and then you come into this, and you're just like, I'm not used to dealing with just aggression all the goddamn time.
Yeah, I have to say, as a play-by-play, coming in last year, like LPL is trial by fire, because not only are there a lot of team fights, but the team fights are so chaotic, especially when you've got the top team. Like last year, I think some of the most chaotic games were like Top Esports versus IG, where you've got these team fights that will be like, instead of it being a 5v5 around Baron, like in most regions, like most sensible League of Legends is, it will be a 1v2 that's over in Tribrush, and then you've got a 2v2 in outside the Baron pit, and then another 1v2 on the other side, and then somehow one team's got a sixth player that's subbed in midway through the match, and it just everything sets on fire, and it's just complete chaos. So trying to keep track of all that, I mean, it's difficult as a viewer, so yeah, I can't even imagine what it must be like for the players.
I say you were delighted to see like an EDG game where it's like front-to-back team fights, cool, I can deal with this is dead handy.
As a caster, front-to-back team fights are great for you sounding good, because it's kind of difficult to lose track of a front-to-back fight. When it's these chaotic skirmishes, you just got to get lost in the source and just enjoy it. I think that's the only way to approach it. But yeah, you're definitely right. Definitely a bit of a slower, more scaling meta. I think especially the mid lane meta is very much leaning towards, like, we've seen so much Azir coming in, which when Azir is a solid meta pick, you know that you're going to have a lot of games going further into the late game. But let's jump into what has been happening, especially in week number 5. And we've got a new little segment. Obviously, it's just 2 of us this week, so we can't do everybody's favorite segment, Guess the Player. And I know... literally thousands of hearts have broken across the world as I've said that there. But
there was a part of me that was half expecting you to come in and be like, oh yeah, we're going to do Guess the Player between me and you. I've made the questions and got myself the answers. You're just going to have to compete.
I did consider it. I also considered just basically having like, here you go, Dagda, pop quiz. Who are these players? But I thought that might be putting you on the spot a little bit. So instead... we've replaced it with a segment that's going to lead into our rundown of the standings, and I've called it Failures and Faves. Now, we're going to come in here, and we've each got one failure and one fave. And this is the team that we are excited about and the team that we're really disappointed about right now. This is based off of week 5 as opposed to the whole first half, but, I mean, you know, we'll take that as with a pinch of salt. So, Dagda, as the guest... although I think you're pretty much going to be consistently on the show as well.
Part of the furniture now,
yeah. I'm going to let you go first. We'll start with failures so we can end on a high note. Who is your failure for week number 5?
Yeah, well, I saw the a couple of clips of me going Maldine during the JDG game. So I'm going to stick with JDG. The biggest one for me is just... they still don't look consistent. I think in their last win, it was definitely more of a compositional thing where they just had these really, really long range team comps that could just deal with everything that was coming in from the opposite side. But they were still invading at really weird times, getting caught out twice. Kanavi did in that series in both games where he just like ran head first in, thought he had a little bit of support from Luma, was just like, I'm dead. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I think... from that perspective, there's a lot of issues still, and even the bot lane as well. Whereas Lumao last year was so good at like these roaming out, these big playmaking abilities, like the Bard that we always love to see. He just seems to be joined at the hip to Loken now and not really doing a huge amount. So for me, JDG has just been the biggest dud of this split. Like the fact that these guys were spring champions, summer finalists, and since Worlds, it's just been this downward path. It's so sad to see.
It's brutal, isn't it? And I want to pick your brain on that a little bit. And, I might be reaching a bit here because maybe you don't know either. But, Dagda, what happened to this team? Because we came into 2021, the only roster changes were theoretically positive, right? Because they only brought players in, and they were players that they chose to bring in. Nobody forced them to pick these players up, right? So you have to assume that it was good reasoning to pick these players up. But then we come into 2021, and somehow the team, even when they're playing the original roster that looked so good last year, is falling apart. And even when it comes to coaching staff, they got Chashao in, who is the coach that took Suning to World's Finals. So surely this is a recipe for success. Do you have like a stab in the dark, or do you have any inside information on what went wrong?
The one for me is just, it seems like teams have kind of copped on as to how to play against this like super farm heavy style. Because for the large portion, spring, basically it was JDG were the only people playing this like, oh yeah, we're just going to have Kanavi harm farm. He was going to get to a point where he's 2 levels ahead of everyone. He's got a ton of gold, ton of damage, and he just beats you over the head with a stick. Now though, teams have actually realized, hang on a second, we can play this style well. We know that this is going to be coming, and teams are just reacting better. And now the mistakes that JDG were making are actually being punished. So say stuff like Loken and Lumao, I was watching the other day, tried to go for like push the wave underneath the tower, reset off that tempo, and give a bit of time for Kanavi to go to invade. But they just completely whiff on the crash. They actually end up causing a freeze against, this is Rogue Warriors game 1, I'm pretty sure, but they end up creating a freeze for the Rogue Warriors bot lane. So then they've got to cancel their backs to go and break the freeze, and Harrow's just like, oh wait, I can just go kill you now. So they end up getting the double kill on bot lane. And it's stuff like this where like Harrow is an insane jungler. Like, he does not deserve to be on Rogue Warriors, but at the same time, that should never have been an opportunity for Harold to ever pick up anything. As these kind of plays that we are consistently seeing, and even as we said it, like in their last series just on Saturday, still Kanavi was going for these crazy invades where he had absolutely no priority from his bot lane. We saw it against top esports as well, where they had like Prio and they just crashed this like they crashed 3 caster minions into the tower. It's like you kill that easily. And it was the same in mid. I think they crashed like four minions into the tower against the Zoe, who just Qs them once, kills the backline, autos the other one, and then just roams across. Like, they don't actually create slow pushing waves that Kanavi can play around like other teams that play this style exceptionally well do. It means they don't actually have the ability to get Kanavi ahead in the same way that they did prior.
So it's just wave control. JDG just needs to watch some YouTube videos about how waves work. Get over to what I was gonna like mention a random channel there, but I thought I probably shouldn't because I haven't seen every video. I don't want to condone anything, especially with the League of Legends community being how it is sometimes. I don't want to name any names.
A little bit.
But the hilarious thing is to me that one of the things that you've pointed out there, one of the teams that have exposed this weakness is Rogue Warriors, who have literally 2 game wins in the whole of the LPL so far. They are 1-7. It's not a good look when Rogue Warriors are taking. Oh, that's the team that punishes these kind of mistakes. It's not a good look. So I'll go over to my failure then as well, and then we'll go into a more positive outlook, because I feel like we're just ragging on teams here, but it has to be done, right? We have to point out who's flopping at the time. And for me, it pains my heart deeply to say, I mean, I could pick Suning or WE. Either one would work. I'm going to go with WE.
You, is it?
No, my two teams are both struggling right now. I'm going to go with WE because Suning, they've been struggling the entire split so far. WE now on a 3-loss streak. They're still actually positive in game difference right now, but losing to RNG was like, okay, fair enough. RNG still very much looking fantastic. Yes, they've got a couple of weaknesses, but all things considered, still very much top team. Then losing to RA, I was like, okay, I could deal with this one because I'm a little bit hyped for RA. So I was like, you know what, we've got enough wins right now. We could take the loss. Like, RA could climb up the standards a little bit. Oh, cool, good stuff. And also, there was a substitute mid laner in for that game, so it was like, whatever. All right, just wash our hands of that one, sweep it under the rug, move on. And then they lose to JDG, which is the team that you've just described for everyone, of like not being able to play the correct map correctly, not being able to work it out as a team. And we've got WE, who for the first 3-4 weeks of LPL seemed like they'd got it all figured out, right? They seemed like they were just on the same page. The teamwork was there. They were all playing through base shung. We had strong solo lanes finally. We had a bot lane that was getting 2v2 kills regularly. And now, in the last few series, it feels like stylistically it's not changed that much. But we've got Breathe getting caught out, sometimes at the top side. We've got this bottom lane of Missing and Jomung, who mechanically are great, but are definitely overstepping in a lot of situations, very reminiscent of last year. And Shanks in the mid lane, obviously didn't play on one of the games, and I think maybe was low on practice coming into this week. But this week, I forget who that was the match against JDG, right?
Yeah.
Really, really weak in the mid lane. Shanks struggled big time. And the problem with that, in my mind, is that he was playing Orianna, which Orianna is the Shanks pick. He's like, when you look at the champions he's played so far, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but he's basically an Orianna one trick with a little bit of a dabble in some other picks like Syndra and Zoe. So when he's on that Orianna, and then he's also not performing in lane, and he's not performing in team fights, it's like, this really isn't working out for WE anymore.
Yeah, and I was actually I watched back some of the highlights from that today. Now, I can kind of forgive the falling behind as the Orianna, because when you're up against Azir, it's just a terrible matchup. Like, it sucks. Azir just outranges you. He's got more poke with the Comet. And basically, you got to try and outplay it as the Orianna, where you time, like, walking past the Azir soldiers as he queues onto you. So then you can try and trade with him and hope that it goes for the best. But, like, it's just not a fun time. But the bigger issue that I saw was, like, I didn't actually catch it during the game, was Shanks was just whiffing ultimates. Like, popping balls down in the middle of the entirety of JDG and somehow managing to get the exact point where nobody was. Like, it was so... Yeah, there was a lot of times.
It wasn't even people flashing out. It was actually just missing,
it was just whiffed.
Yeah.
And I think that was where a lot of the issues stem from as well. But the bigger issue, kind of going back towards like the RA games and the RNG games, is like, they just kind of forgot TPs existed. I was saying to you, like, coming into the series on Saturday against JDG, that like, these guys just don't think at all, hey, a cross map TP can come in here. And that's what Xiaohu bullied them with. They got punished with it against RA as well, where they just TP'd all their members in behind them and bot lane as well. And then again, we're seeing this like really, really greedy play for them, where they over chase into River, which allowed Xiaohu to be TPing on top of them. We saw it again in the series against JDG, where like they could have turned over towards that third dragon and in game 2, I want to say it was, be able to get that for themselves, but instead they try and chase on to JDG, and JDG then turn that play around. There was a lot of stuff like this where just the bloodlust essentially from them, the greed from them took over. It was like, hey, we're going to just shove him back at Jomung plates. He's going to be great. It's like, damn, we're dead because they TP'd in behind us. It's God. Just, just so many times.
That is the perfect word to describe WE, is the bloodlust, right? It does feel like when they start to get advantages, they're like, oh, let's go for it. Let's go for this. This is the play. This is the way. And sometimes they're just biting off way more than they can chew because they've only got little mouths. Based on the gameplay that we're seeing here. I don't know what that analogy is.
Because apparently mouths relate directly to gameplay.
Well, we said that they're biting off more than they can chew. But they're biting off reasonable chunks, they just have small mouths. I don't know. Anyway, moving on from my terrible analogy, I do just want to add one caveat, and that's that Shanks in the mid lane has had a family emergency. Now, I don't know what the specifics of that are, but that's the reason that there was a substitute in on the series against RA, and so I would assume that he had less practice time or whatnot leading into the series against JDG. So I'm certainly not trying to set up a hate brigade for Shanks. He has had really good games this split as well. So I think still we're only halfway through spring, so let's give Shanks more time and figure that out. But let's move over to the faves. This is the failures and faves segment. So we've done the negatives. Let's get into some positives. Let's have a good time. I'm going to go first on this one, Dagda.
Go for it.
I am hyped about Fun plus Phoenix. This is the team that is very much my fave right now because I think a lot of people can relate to this. Fun Plus Phoenix is so much fun to watch. Holy crap, the name is so accurate because these guys just go. They just find any tiny window, it's the timing windows that they find. They like resetting to get onto objectives, but also the split second that someone is out of position. Fun Plus just go, man. Like, and the thing about it is, like, let's say you're a player that's been caught out of position, and it's like, okay, the enemy team gets a pick, right? And then maybe they turn it into an objective. Well, Fun Plus, they see kills as an objective. So they'll get the kill on the first guy, but then the guy that kind of half walked this way a little bit to maybe try and help his teammate, that's the next objective. And so they piggyback each of these kills off the back of each other, and it just snowballs out of control, and it ends up with like actually incredibly fast wins. When we see FPX winning these games, they go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, I think FPX are the team that are best at using their globals right now. Like, when you look at the Twisted Fates, the Pantheons, even Nuggery with TPs and stuff, like, they're just so damn clever. And I think the part that I love about FPX is, like, they're so good at what they do because you've got Nuggery in the top lane, who you can just leave on his own and he's going to win. Like, it doesn't matter. This dude is just winning top lane. And every single time, they'll, like, cool, we'll get the counter matchup for you, or even if we stick you on Gragas, he's going to be totally fine. He'll have really good TP understanding. He'll be able to draw a whole heap of pressure and won't die. Like, I love watching Nuggery. And that just means you can play elsewhere on the map. Like, you can have Bo go wherever the hell he wants. You've got Doomby, who can either roam to help Nuggery because you know what Nuggery's capable of when he gets a lead, or you go help LWX and Chris Bot because LWX is playing out of his mind as well with like the Zayas and the Kai'Sas back in the meta. He looks damn good. So there's no real flaw with FPX right now, where even if you did see a weakness in that bottom lane, or even if you did see a weakness with Bo, all the other parts kind of shore up those weaknesses so well. And that as well, when you look at the way that like Bo and Crisp synergize together, it's just magnificent. Like, these two guys, like, I know that Crisp said it in the interview that he was like, hey, look, you know, Bo's a very mechanically strong player, but he kind of needs a little bit of guidance and like somebody just steer him in the right direction. Like, when those two group up, they're just killing everyone and everything.
I think Crisp is taking that very literally as well, because he's standing right next to wherever Bo is on the map and physically steering him in the right They wander through the jungle hand in hand as like this little duo of death.
I love the way it's like, because we metaphorically said, it's like Bo's the mad dog on the leash, and then we just get Chris playing Rel, so he's physically put a leash onto Bo with the Rel E, and it's just like, all right, we're gonna walk around with you. But but I want to go back to something he said there, which was like, they kind of have the objectives of like kill, kill, kill and stuff like that, but they're so good at snowballing them into towers. Like, it's not like it's just mindless killing and then you're 10 kills up, but you've got no towers and you're kind of just sitting there going, well, what do we do now? They're really, really good at like, okay, well, we're going to make this pick because that will net us turret plates here or a tower, and then we'll take that pressure from the bot side, we'll translate it towards top, and we'll get Nugger. It's beautiful to watch kind of the dance that they have across the map. And that's why I was saying these guys are so strong with globals, because whether it's, oh well, we got TPs, we got a Twisted Face, we've got a Pantheon, or even if they have like Doomby on Rumble or something like that, or a Kled, something that like can shove and move, they're so good at using those waves to set themselves up for success.
They truly are. It's something beautiful to watch, honestly. I'm gonna end the conversation there about FPX because I have a feeling we may jump into that conversation a little bit in one of the latest segments. So I'll move the conversation on and I'll kick it over to you because we still need your fave, Dagda.
Yeah, so my favorite, I'm going to say, is FPX, but my second favorite is RNG right now. I'm really excited by these guys. RNG? I don't know. I feel like a pirate. I feel like a pirate every time I say this. And like, people keep saying it to me, but like, it's just how Ireland says the letter or R. It's literally just the country. The way we say it, it's not my fault, all right? I'm sorry. It's how I was brought up. Blame
It's not his Irish. Fault, it's his parents' fault.
Yeah, and their parents' fault. But either way, like, I've been really, really excited by these guys. Wei, I think, is looking absolutely amazing in the jungle. He's been amazing. The way he's able to give a whole heap of pressure towards his laners, so like making sure that Xiaohu's able to stay safe in the top side, And even if he does fall behind, finding really intelligent jungle paths to get himself back into a lead, or at least even with his opponent, after giving so many resources to his lates, is really, really impressive. And this guy is, after moving from E-Stars, is quickly becoming one of my favourite players to watch. You're looking at Xiaohu in the top lane as well, who's only just grown as this top laner now. It kind of works, because we had Kelsey on last week who's talking about it, where Xiaohu was always really good at kind of understanding how to play side waves. And now they've just put him into a side lane to start with. So he kind of just fits that spot to begin with. But as this team slowly starts to grow, we're seeing like Cryin having these really cool plays, Xiaohu starting to look a lot better. But Gala and Ming in the bot lane for me have been the real standout performers because they get nothing. They don't get any sort of attention. And oftentimes we're seeing them coming up with 2v2 kills. Yeah. Gala being insane in these team fights as well, because they'll stick on something like Xayah, he'll farm to 2-3 items, and then he's like flashing in aggressively, using that Feather Storm. Like, he looks so good. And when Ming is on something like Alistair, they just take over from that bottom lane.
Yeah, his Aphelios as well is really, really exceptional. I think that also I want to quickly highlight Ming. I feel like Ming doesn't get anywhere near enough credit on this team. Yeah. He, comparatively, especially to like the start of last year, I think the difference with 365 days between, the difference in gameplay is so dramatic. I think Ming was really, really having a bit of a slump, especially towards spring in 2020, but even partly for summer as well. Comparatively now to this year, it feels like these roster changes and the way that things are going for RNG has brought like the fire back in their belly, you know. It feels good to watch Xiaohu and Ming play again. It feels like they're back on top and motivated again.
And it's really interesting as well, because when you think about Ming, right? I mean, this guy historically played with Uzi, so he was getting all the attention. Like, we talk about Uzi getting the attention, but by default, Ming gets it as well. Yeah. So he's able to play over aggro. He's able to play as aggressive he wants, because he's got the world who's ready to come and just crash down on whoever's in that bottom lane. Now, though, he's kind of had to change that up, because he can't just be going aggressive or playing his style that he was used to playing on a competitive stage, because you just don't have those resources. So for him to be able to adapt kind of shows, one, how good he is, but obviously having that veteran status as well is going to help. And now still thriving in this new environment, I think, is a big shout out to him.
Yeah, in my mind, it sets up a lot of respect for this player, right? And I think people should respect him. So the only other things I wanted to do, I just want to quickly kind of round out the standings, because we've hit on 4 of the big teams there. EDG still in first place spot. We've talked about EDG in the past. I don't think there's a huge amount to add to that conversation, unless there's any like tidbits that you want to throw in there, Dagda.
No, I loved Flandre's giggly game where he was playing Gragas, just like tossing out ultimates to stop his opponent backing. If you haven't, that was a very fun game. But
which game was that?
It was V5.
Yeah. So definitely go watch them on it. That was very amusing. I think the other 2 teams that I particularly want to just quickly hit on before we move away from the standings are the teams in 5th and 7th place, Rare Atom and LNG, because I'm just going to toot my own horn here for a second.
Yeah, I knew this was coming.
I was saying since the start, LNG is overrated. I don't dig this team. Like, I don't think Tarzan's going to be able to carry the lanes. I think losing Flandre top is going to really hurt them. I don't rate Icon in the mid lane. And now it's coming true at the same time. Like, I sound like I'm celebrating LNG doing badly. Like, nothing against the players.
Yeah, get them, LNG obviously. Fans. Get them.
but I looked like an idiot before, because they were doing really well after I said they wouldn't. So now I look like less of an idiot. But Rare Atom as well is actually the team I want to talk about, because I was excited for what this team could be, right? Because it's this Vici Gaming roster that was specifically built to set up Zika in the mid lane. Then Zika dips out of the squad. In comes Fofo, who just basically was on like an argumentative nightmare of a team on BLG where nobody likes each other and they're literally not a team. Moves away from all of that, gets plugged into the squad that is built for a strong mid laner to carry. Guess what? Fofo's a strong mid laner. So suddenly, in my mind, that's just a recipe for success. And I feel like we're finally getting to see that a little bit as it comes into fruition. And, you know, taking down teams like WE, for example, taking down LNG this week really makes it feel like, okay, the win against Rogue Warriors didn't fill me with confidence. It's like, cool, you beat Rogue Warriors. So it's literally everyone else except Top Esports somehow. But now beating WE and LNG back to back, I'm starting to feel really confident about RA's chances.
Will say, just on the LNG point, like, Tarzan has always been more comfortable on like early game junglers and stuff. And we're seeing like the Pantheons and the Olafs and stuff work out really well for him. I'm curious to see what happens to LNG if the jungle changes that are being like messed about on the PBE, where like experience and stuff is going down, and we'll probably start to see a shift back towards these early game junglers. What happens to Tarzan? Because that seems to be like prime Tarzan territory, and that's when I think we might have a different look at LNG. But we'll see what happens. Like, it'll be a while before these come in anyway. But that's just something I'm keeping in the back of my mind.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm curious, and obviously these changes might not happen as well as PBE.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. And we can always revisit. Like, I'll put a mental bookmark on that, and we can revisit that topic in a future episode. All right, so let's move away from the standings. If you don't know the standings right now, you've got Google. You've got access to the internet.
And you've got 2 weeks.
This podcast. That's not my job. I refuse. Anyway, so the next segment. I've got a really witty title for this one. I don't know why I never thought to title this. It's called Favorite 3 Players. I really should have actually thought about what I was going to call it.
Terrific 3.
Yeah, there we go. We'll call it the Terrific Trio. Perfect. So, in previous weeks, we've been saying, okay, this is who I think the top 3 in any role is. Yeah. But since we're going into a break, since we are halfway through the split, and it's like very nicely split into the 2 halves, what I'm instead proposing is that we each bring to the table our 3 favorite players right now. And that can be down to the performance that they've been having in games, or it can be down to some external factor or the way that they play specifically, whatever. It's like personal opinion on who you think are the most fun and the most interesting players to watch. So we'll take it in turns. I'll let you go first, and you can go with your number 3 player first. Then I'll do number 3.
I think you should go first, because I've got a couple that I'm kind of on the fence with. So let's see what you have, and then I've got a couple others that I can bring in.
Okay, sure. Right. Well, I'll start then. So my number 3, my 3rd favorite player right now in the league, and I feel like this might be controversial based.
I like the way you're
recent
prepping
Reddit
for
threads.
this. You sit up straight. It's like, okay, all right.
I'm just emotionally preparing myself to be flamed on Reddit. It's Jackie Love. And now, I don't think that Jackie Love is the best AD carry in the league. And someone accused me on Reddit recently of saying that he's the best AD carry in the league. I promise you, I have not said that like verbatim one time in this split. I've maybe said he has the potential to be. I've maybe said he's in the conversation. But I have not said that he's the best AD carry in the league. But what I will say is, damn it if he's not one of the most fun AD carries in the league. I love the ridiculous fights that we get. I love like the FPX versus Top Esports. I think it was FPX Top Esports where he's playing Senna, and like 3 fights in a row in the bottom lane, he somehow walks away on 1 HP. And then on the last one of these fights in the bottom lane, I think it was game 1.
It was, yeah.
In the last fight, he's like 4 HP or something. He's like, my team's still going, and that guy's pretty low. I should see if I could steal this kill. It's just like, he obviously dies immediately, as of course you would. But it's just like, that is the most Jackie Love thing I've ever seen. If there's a singular moment of stupidity, like that is it to describe what Jackie Love plays like. And I think that the Senna is definitely one of these picks that if you're very, very good at Senna, you can play very much on a knife's edge. So I think that the pick fits Jackie Love quite well. But I just love the kind of too hard. I kind of like coin flip players, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Jackie Love is a weighted coin flip. He's usually positive with a little bit of negative sprinkled in. But I don't mind the negative so much.
He just brings the excitement level up, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Is it actually going to work?
You know things are going to happen. You know that he's going to try and make a play. And I just can't get enough of watching that style.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more weighted this split, I'll say. Like, as we said, he's had 1 death now before the 15-minute mark in the entirety of the spring split. So, like, over the course of 5 weeks, 7 days a week, he's had 1 death before 15 minutes, which is insanely impressive. the only problem that I kind of have with Jackie Love is just like kind of the same as yourself, where like I want him to be more consistent. It's that like it is the weighted coin, but I'm just like, come on. I want to be able to say, hey, look,
I want the good Jackie Love every day.
yeah, where it's just like, hey, look, I can see what this guy is capable of doing. I know what he is. And when you get these moments where he just like arcane shifts over the wall as Ezreal into 4 people, you're like, what did you expect? Like, what did you genuinely think was going to happen here? But that's like
there's no way that was a thought, right?
No.
There's no way that he actually thought this through before it happened.
Yeah.
I think he plays purely off of instincts. I think that's what actually happens there.
Yeah, but I did laugh my ass off in that the last one, the FPX game, where LWX is like chasing him on Kai'Sa through the bushes, just like as he tries to escape, and Carson just gets down. It's just it's ridiculous. But I mean,
stupid.
in that like that was game 1 of the series, right, where we had this like craziness and Jackie Love was coming out on top. And then in game 2, you see him on the Kai'Sa where he like flashes after LWX to try and like get the Kai'Sa Q and like is out of range. And it's just LWX walks away. You get to see the duality of Jackie Love in that series.
And the thing is, right, the part that annoys me about that play is that I'm pretty sure he wasn't waiting for Q cooldown. I'm pretty sure he was trying to figure out if he was in range after flashing, right? I'm not 100% sure. I'd need to rewatch the clip, but to me it felt like
we need the pro view.
This?
We need the pro view. Like, was he just hovering Q and being like this circle, and then hovering flash and be like this circle? If I get it, if I do the math, get out a ruler. Just
yeah. And he's like, well, the play was calculated, but damn, am I bad at maths. All right. Dagda, over to you. Let's hear your number 3.
Okay. My number 3 is going to be Iwandi. So nice. I'm really, really happy with Iwandi, and I've been massively impressed with his growth. And I'm a support main, so I'm going to shed him from the hilltops anyway. His mechanics are amazing. Like, we've all seen the 5-man Alistair headbutt that nearly swung that game against WE. I
can't believe they lost that fight.
I know.
I'm still like mentally reeling from the fact that they lost.
That was actually, speaking of Shanks that we were kind of doing dirty earlier on, it was actually Shanks' shockwave in that game that turned that fight around. But yeah, Iwandi looks fantastic in team fights, and as the kind of the big engage tool for LNG, he looks great. But what I love about this guy, if you actually watch after a team fight that LNG wins, like say it's an early skirmish and it's on the bottom side or something, he'll like instantly back before the fight's actually done. He's like, look, I've got no more cooldowns. I've got nothing else to offer to this. And this is where he's so intelligent. He'll like start his recall. He'll back and instantly go topside. And like 3, maybe 4 times now, the couple of seconds that he has saved on the recall by not actually being involved in the fight means that he saves his top laner. So, like, you get the cross map that's about to come in, but he's actually backed, he's got his Moby boots, and he's just skimming straight towards top lane. And it's super cool to watch. And he does it so consistent. He's one of the only supports I've noticed who actually does this. And I love the fact that he's been able to keep his top laner safe. He's found these really cool opportunities to roam. His mechanics, as we said, are on point. The team fighting is great. The only downside to it is that, like, sometimes with Light, there seems to be some miscommunication there. They're not quite on the same page, and they can end up falling prey to some more aggressive bot laners. But still, like, I think we're starting to witness in Iwandi, like, one of the next great supports coming out. Like, I really didn't doubt this, or had massive doubts for this guy in 2020, but certainly in 2021, I've been really, really impressed with him. I'm curious to see now if he ends up, say, paired with someone like Jackie Love or Viper or these guys that are super, super good, like what happens for him, and I think that's where we'll actually see him really shine.
The conclusion is that we want our 2 number 3s to combine and number 1s together. Well, we'll see. I definitely agree. I think Iwandi's been looking great. I think Light has had some sus gameplay in the last couple of weeks, but let's not talk about Light. We were talking about Iwandi. So let's move to number 2. I guess we'll just alternate. So I'll go next again. So I don't know if you can tell I'm an AD carry main, but my number 2 is also an AD carry. And this one surprised even me. I wasn't expecting me to say this one, but I was looking through the list of players. I was like, damn, actually this is a real thing. I'm saying iBoy. iBoy is my number 2 pick this week. which I remember last year I was kind of looking at iBoy and I was like, you know, like so many times it was almost amazing. So many times it was almost like this guy's it, right? And back in the day he used to be it. But there's like a combination of factors here. Number one, he's on this rare atom squad that I'm so hyped about. I think him and Hung is a pretty solid duo. I don't think they're the best duo in the league, but I think that they are good. And on a good day with the right picks, they can dominate a lane. I think his team fighting is actually exceptional when he does it right. But it's just
60% of the time it works.
Exactly. It's like sometimes he is just like so clean. Like there was a moment in their most recent series against WE where he's playing Tristana. Oh no, sorry, it was against LNG, not WE. He's on Tristana. He's chunked out before the fight. Gets caught out in classic iBoy fashion, right? He has to burn both of his summoners. And it's like, iBoy, you fool, what have you done? And then, in the team fight, on like 400 HP or something, he jumps... We're at Dragon Pit, and he's on red side of the map, right? Mm-hmm. So he jumps over from Banana Brush, over into the fight, auto attacks 3 times to finish off 2 kills, then jumps out the other side of the fight towards blue buff, and survives. Yeah. And you're just like, that was sick. That was so sick. Like, when he could pull that kind of pizzazz out, just off a whim, I just wish that he had a mini-map, man. If this guy had a mini-map, he would be such a good player. He needs to reinstall it and, like, just stop getting caught out alone before fights.
The problem I have with iBoy is the start of your story, where it's like,
hey,
right? He really, really into this play, but he managed to save it. It's just like that.
But then he wasn't playing, right?
But that's what I mean. It's like every time, like, look, I know iBoy can be really good, but it's just you gotta stop being really bad before
you just
really
have to.
Good.
The problem is,
it's the same. It's the same with Icon. This is the same problem I have with Icon. Is that Icon can be really, really good, but then I'll watch him like over split push bot lane and just get picked off. And you're like, cool, well there goes the entire.
Why didn't he have a mini map? If he'd had a mini map, everything would have been fine. Yeah. I think it's just the I at the start of the name that does it.
True.
Apple fanboys, it was always going to go wrong, right? But yeah, anyway, that's my number 2 is iBoy coming in, and I think just stick him on Tristana, stick him on Samira, stick him on Ezreal, things where you have this extra movement so you can misposition a little bit and be a little bit greedy in the team fights and get away with it, and everything looks amazing. So, Dagda, over to you. What's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is someone that I already mentioned. It's going to be Orangey Way. I think this guy has been absolutely amazing. And he has been one of my favorite players to watch literally since week 1. This guy has been so incredible. And whether it's like Lilias or Pantheons or whatever it might be, this guy just is so clever in the jungle. But his team fighting as well. This was something that I didn't really touch on in the first part where we were talking about is, like, whenever I see him on Lilia, the amount of flashes in to get 4 or 5 man sleeps, the positioning to constantly be able to just get enough damage off, or actually, even if he doesn't have the flash available, to just get these big lullabies off. He's so much fun to watch, and he's constantly playing like right on the edge of what he knows he's able to achieve, and then he'll skitter away with like absolutely no health. And then we see him when stuff like the Pantheon, his engages are so good, and even just the way he's able to control the early game, as he said, like getting this deep vision control for Xiao, making sure that he's got constant pressure, and always keeping an eye out for an opportunity, whether it might be to get in and steal away a camp, or just being clever with, if I can't really do a dragon now because that means that there's an opportunity for them to gank top, so I'm just going to forgo dragon. It's like, he's just so clever in the way he approaches the game. And he's been so much fun to watch just with the aggression that he brings in those team fights as well.
Do you know, the funny thing to me about listening to who our favourite players are in this context is that we're kind of, in terms of who our favourites are versus how we play individually, we're on opposite pages. Because I'm a pretty safe player, generally speaking. Yeah. Like, I like to win through CS advantage and through macro advantage, whereas you just go in. And all of the players that you're saying are your favourites are like the intelligent players that play the map correctly and do it. And I'm like, I like iBoy because he jumps in the fight.
No, Joe. You just don't understand. My engages are intelligent. You just don't trust me.
I don't know about that one, Chief. I've seen some.
Here, roll the highlight clip of me just inting.
I've seen some monkey engages from Dagda. That's all I'll say. Anyway, right. Final favorites, because we do have to move on as well. Yeah. We are about 3/4 of the way through the episode, so we've got to speed things up a little bit. So my number one player, my favorite from the first half of spring, is going to be Crisp. And I feel like I've probably stolen that one from you, Dagda. I feel like you were probably going to say Crisp.
It's okay, I had the backup.
I know you have backup, so I'm just going to run with it. I was looking at the FPX roster. I was like, man, I can fit any of these guys as number one. I didn't want to fill my top 3 with FPX, but I'm so hyped on this team. And it feels to me like, realistically, Crisp is the guy. He's the mastermind behind it all. He's the guy that's, he's working with Bo to set it all up. Doonby gets involved in the action. But Crisp, man, Rel is very clearly a very strong pick. If you look at the win rates for Rel, I had a look earlier on today. Crisp,
like 70%.
Crisp is like a decent portion of all of the Rel games played in the LPL. He's played it like 7 times or something already, and he has a 100% win rate. He is so damn good on Rel. The way that he just like charges around the map, he seems to make this champion look like it has a lot of mobility, which it honestly really doesn't, but he manages to make it happen. Like, he's at every play, he's starting off these fights, he always seems to land multi-man crash downs, his ults are always on point. Honestly, it's difficult to say a bad word about Crisp right now, and I think that this is the kind of player that you just have to say, look, honestly, just bravo with the way he's playing right now.
And especially, there's only a few supports right now that I kind of look at who could play Rel and really to the full extent of her kit. And Crisp is definitely one of them. The other one that kind of stood out to me was actually Lucas, watching him in the IG series today. Understanding like where you can leave that bot lane and go and actually make plays in conjunction with your jungler. Like, that's so strong because as you were kind of hinting at the mobility there, like she's able to hop over walls with that W.
Yeah.
So you can catch so many people out, but also just really intelligent uses of the Hex Flash. I think that's super underrated on the Rel, and it was the Lucas one today that really stood out to me, and we've seen it from Crisp as well, where they're like positioning over these walls, and they're getting these Hex Flashes off to just crash down on top of multiple people, get that big ultimate off, and it just looks so clean. But Crisp is so smart at understanding like where he can be positioned. How do I deny the vision here? How can I avoid the vision that everyone else has to actually set up those plays? And as we said, him working and kind of controlling Bo, it's difficult enough to try and deal with your own game when you've got to, as a support, manage the 2 people that are in your lane, how that lane's going, the wave management, everything else, then also trying to half manage what the jungler is doing as well and trying to keep track of it and how you can work. There's a lot on Crisp's plate, and he's been expertly keeping them all standing. So I 100% agree, like Crisp has been stunning this split. And it's really good to see the FPX bot lane getting back to what we expected of them after what was such a disappointing 2020.
Yeah, I'd agree with that statement. I think the FPX bot lane they've had a resurgence, they've had a renaissance almost. Like, I feel like they're just so incredible. And I honestly think that they're one of the best 2v2s we have in the league right now, which I wouldn't have, especially last year, I definitely wouldn't have said, oh yeah, LWX and Crisp, this is a great 2v2. Yeah, look for the laning phase. Like, and I still don't think that their biggest strength is the laning phase, but I don't think that it's a weakness anymore like I would have thought of it previously. All right, over to you then, Dags, for your number 1 favorite player for the first half of spring.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry, but it has to be Nuggery, right? This guy,
I thought about Nuggery, but I was like, it's too
insane. It's too easy to just pick up, and I'm going to just take that low-hanging fruit. I love this guy. Every single time he'll be in doesn't matter if it's a good matchup or a bad matchup or one that goes even, he'll come out ahead, and he will play that lane expertly. And we were even having this discussion on the broadcast, is that like, the Gnar versus Renekton, people are like, there's some players that are like, no, the matchup is really, very difficult for Renekton. Some people are like, no, the Renekton is the counter match, it works for the game. Nuggery's played both sides, and Nuggery wins both sides. It doesn't matter what side of the matchup this guy's on.
The crazy thing about that point specifically as well is we've seen in multiple series, he'll play one side of the matchup, and then game number 2, he'll play the opposite side of the matchup and win both times. And it's just like, hey, I'm just better than you. We see that so often from this guy.
And the thing is, coming over from LCK, where he had like the 0-3 power spike, where he'd die a bunch of times in lane, I don't know if that's just prepped him now for what the LPL, for coming into the LPL. Because this guy has got a sixth sense. He will just realize when there's multiple members coming up towards him, or even if he's in a split push bot lane, he'll figure out, hang on a second, Spidey senses are tingling, people are coming down towards his bot side, I need to peace out. And then somehow, he'll manage the great escape, where he worms his way between 3-4 people, and just pieces out. It's just insane to me. But the big thing as well, is obviously just how good he is in lane. But when we get to team fights, this guy's understanding of how to approach where he needs to be positioned is absolutely incredible. And that's why, like, he was always touted as a great Kennen player. But when we see him on the Nars, the Gragas's, these kind of things, he's consistently finding really great TP wards to get to, which obviously another kind of ode to Crisp there as well. But the flank positioning, and even if he's trying to approach fights just around Dragon Pit, he knows exactly where he needs to be positioned. He knows the best time to utilize ultimates, to utilize abilities. He'll hang on to them until the last second. It's an absolute pleasure to watch this guy play and to see him flourish, where we had Khan previously, and Khan just couldn't adjust. He couldn't adjust to the LPL. He couldn't adjust to what FPX wanted to do. But Nuguri just seems to have taken this in his stride. And because of it, he's just become the linchpin for FPX. Like, everything that FPX is strong with is oftentimes revolving around the fact that he can play weak side, absorb a bunch of pressure, and still heavily win his lane.
Yeah, I think I concur completely. In the most positive way possible, Nuguri is a freak of nature.
Yeah,
he was born to play top lane perfectly. Like, he does die sometimes, but the amount of pressure that the man absorbs while FPX could do whatever they want around the rest of the map, he'll happily just distract 3 players while FPX just run amok in the bottom side.
That's the problem. Is like, if you're playing against FPX, it's like, what do? Do you try and go towards Nuguri and try and keep him in track? Because then Doomby's just gone boss. Doomby's just ruining your bot lane. Or do you just ignore Nuguri and
we're running out of time, mate. I've got to stop you talking about Nuguri.
Gushing.
I know you can talk about him all day.
I'll stop
but,
gushing. Okay.
Right. I've got theoretically 2 mini segments left, and we have just under 10 minutes on the clock. So really quickly, we'll do 5-minute segments here. So this is one that you wanted to bring up. What's up with mid lane? Because right now in the LPL, in fact, no, I'll let you introduce this, because this is a topic that you wanted to bring up. So I'm just gonna let you go for it.
So, like, I understand why, but I was looking at my list earlier on, and I was just kind of like, hey, like, who are the 3 players that kind of excite me? And I was looking through each of the roles to try to look at, like, I got like Nuguri, Zoom, Flandre, Xiaohu for top lane. I got Wei, I got Bo, I got Beishan, I got a bunch of players in that jungle. And I kind of looked at mid, and I was like, hey, look, I mean, Scout's looking good, Rookie's looking pretty okay, and then I got Doomby, but who plays just all these weird things. But outside of that, I was kind of like, look, I mean, mid lane hasn't really been very exciting for me this split. And when I had so many cool mid lane plays last year, like between Rookie and Knight and all these guys, it feels like just the mid lane for me has been a little bit of disappointment, mostly just because of the style of mid laners that we're getting right now.
Yeah.
Like, looking at Oriana's and Syndra's and now Azir coming back into the meta, it just feels like we're losing a lot of the playmaking that we had. Like, I was really excited at the start of the year when I was like, oh, we got Akali's, we've got Silas's, we got all these cool playmaking champions. And now I've kind of got to the point where it's like, oh, we get Syndra versus Oriana for the 6th time this week, and Syndra's got like a 28% win rate because she's not able to do anything against these dive compositions that are coming in. It just feels like the mid lane's been relegated to a more supportive role. And it's kind of sad to see when we had really, really good mid lane talent that just the meta just isn't suiting right now.
Yeah, and I think that you've kind of accidentally answered your own question there in the first couple of sentences, where you're like, last year, what were we so excited about? Rookie and Knight. Guess who are 2 players that have been underperforming so far this split? Rookie and Knight. Rookie has not looked anything like himself recently, with some standout performances, but actually quite a few games where it doesn't look like Rookie, honestly. And then Knight as well he's not been playing badly per se, but the team hasn't been performing around him, and he's not done anything that's like outside crazy. You know, it's been fairly run of the mill Orianna gameplay, right? So
Yeah.
I definitely think that it's you've hit the nail on the head with the meta has shifted away from huge playmakers in the mid lane, but also two of our star mid laners just really aren't performing right now.
But it is the interesting thing for me in this is that like it's actually shifted entirely from last year, where it was like, oh, mid lane is really, really cool to watch, and our AD carry pool kind of sucks. To like now, the AD carries are really hyped to watch because we got Viper, Jackie Love, Kai'Sa's, Zaya's. We got like nutty plays with Samira coming in. Like it's so cool to see. And it's just, it was kind of stood out to me. I was like, I've got a list like this long for AD carries. I've got like 3 that I'm excited for when I see them in the mid lane.
Yeah, top lane as well. Top lane is
sick
this year.
Yeah.
And jungle. So we have a lot of and support actually.
Yeah, I don't. This is the thing. I don't know if it's just like in comparison, mid lane, I'm just not as excited about.
Yeah.
Or if it's just, and obviously as we talk about the meta and stuff, or if it's just like everything else has just gotten so much cooler that I'm just really excited about everything else. I'm just like, mid lane.
And I think as well, because we talk so often, if it is a personal thing, we're going to be on the same page. So there's not that much disparity within this conversation. So I want to quickly, because we are running out of time, I want to move on to our final topic here. I want each of us nominate a personal mid-split MVP for spring. Since we have this nice little cut-off point, we have a halfway mark. Who is your... I'll let you go first on this one. Who is your mid-split MVP right now? Or if you need a minute, I can go first.
There's kind of... I'm just caught between 2 people. And because I kind of said Nuguri already as my favorite player, I'm actually going to swap it over to the other player that I love, which is Viper right now. I think Viper has leveled up EDG massively. And for a team that kind of relies so heavily on like really strong fundamentals, Viper, and then going into really strong team fights, Viper has just been an amazing addition to this roster, where they now have a super potent bot laner who's willing to make these very aggressive plays. And I was actually talking to Ashley Kang a little bit about this, and she was saying that Viper previously was kind of afraid to go for these very aggressive plays. Like he was known in LCK as not wanting to be the one to make the mistake. And he had a lot of pride in his play, not in like an arrogant setting where he'd be an absolute tool about it, but just when she talked to him in interviews about like the pentakill that he got in Worlds and stuff like that, she could see him like straighten up in his chair and be very, like, you could see the like him shoulders back. He was invested in this. This was a proud memory for him. But to see him now taking that extra step where not only does he have these proud memories, but he's now willing to risk it in the LPL, to go that step further, to put his body on this line to make the play. I think that's what was needed to really level up EDG. And when you've now got Scout, who's getting a heap of help coming through from JJ, Scout's looking really, really good. So now you've got this mid AD carry that are just stepping up hugely. And it looks so damn good for EDG. And I'm super excited to see now if Viper can continue on this route, what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, I'm not going to change my answer from what I was originally going to say. I completely agree. I think Viper is... I think the only other person in the conversation is Nuguri. But I definitely think Viper is the strongest player in the LPL right now. I think that if we take like MVP by its actual definition, most valuable player, I think Viper is the guy that if you were just looking at these 5 weeks and that was all the gameplay you had to look at, he is the player that would deserve the biggest salary. I think that he's just an exceptional AD carry, and I've said it on broadcast many times. One of the things I value most in players is the clutch factor. When it comes down to it, when you've got a 1v5, can you pull it out? Viper's got it on tap, man. He's pouring pints of it for everyone else on the team. This guy is just unbelievable. And I just can't wait to see more of him. I'm gutted at how little I've actually got to cast him so far.
Yeah, I haven't cast EDG at all yet. Yeah. I'm like, just give me a game.
What, none? I
haven't done a single game. I haven't cast a single EDG game.
I'm pretty sure I cast them earlier.
So sad.
Split, yeah, either way, Viper, that's going to be from both of us then. So he gets the official last hit MVP of the first half of spring award, which isn't a mouthful at all. With that though, Dagda, we're going to round out episode 3. Any final thoughts as we go into our little 2-week break for Chinese New Year?
you should probably work on your naming conventions. But
Yeah.
other than that,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see where we actually round out. Because, like,
Yeah.
obviously we talked about EDG. I want to see how far this team can go. FPX is on the rise. RNG are still looking threatening. Like, there are so... And even, like, that's not even including Top Esports and JDG, who... I mean, I don't know about JDG, but certainly Top Esports are trying to come back into it. So, I think, looking at this...
Soon will be back.
Soon will, yeah, maybe in summer. But I think definitely looking at this, we've got a very exciting split ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
And to crown another new champion in 2021 is just going to be crazy.
It's going to be insane. With that, though, I've been Munchables. I've been joined by Dagda. This has been The Last Hit. Thank you so much for watching or listening. And we'll see you guys after Chinese New Year.